Well, Uncle Doug,
Uncle Mark.
sometimes we need to do a little gardening. Sometimes we garden in the graveyard, and sometimes we garden in the garden.
Sure.
And today is an interest. I think today is a little agriculture we could do right on the margin of those two worlds, right?
It kind of is. It's kind of a both and a neither.
Yeah.
So it's not in the garden or the other garden.
Well,
Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the big secret of our show.
Right.
And I'm gonna spill the whole beans here. None of the gods are real. So the one that I'm about to say,
Uncle Dan. Uncle Dan's gone mad.
but the one
about?
the one that I'm gonna say is extra not real.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys know this, but this week in Little Rock, as you may have heard,
that's in a state here called Arkansas. For
Yes,
our
indeed.
Foreign listeners,
that's right.
And had a very prominent and famous governor.
Mike Huckabee.
Mike Huckabee, exactly.
Yes. So Arkansans, also known as Arkanites, and my favorite, Arkansawyers.
Is this true?
Yeah,
I've never heard Arkanites. Is that true?
according to Wikipedia,
Arkanites.
Arkansawyers.
Well, we're Utahns, and there's two spellings for that.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
They can't be.
HNS and HANS.
Yeah, there's an extra A in
Utahans?
Utahans.
Utahans.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they're just trying to work a ha-ha.
Or a Utah Sawyer.
Right.
Utah Knights.
Anyway, these people from Arkansas were shocked and horrified by the unfortunately non-permanent display of an 8-foot-tall statue on the grounds of their state capital. This, of course, was brought there by our good friend Lucian Greaves and his Satanic Temple as a protest to the 10 Commandments that have gone up on the grounds there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do. The statue itself is the now famous Baphomet.
Yes. Hail Baphomet.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. The goat-headed god flanked by two adoring children.
Yes.
Looking up at him.
I'll tell you what, that Baphomet does not miss a day at the gym.
No.
Oh yeah, he's doing all right. He's a sexy, handsome.
No, and as we discussed with Lucian, it's actually quite a beautiful statue. And,
Indeed.
And provocative. It's all the good things.
It's all the good things.
Yeah.
So in honor of that, I thought I would dig into the guy himself, Baphomet, not Lucian. Because I know nothing about him. He's widely associated in this society with Satan. Satanists have taken him on. If you ask a Christian who that goat-headed guy is, they're going to say the word Satan. He's not.
Right.
He's not Satan. He's not even a thing, really. Nobody ever worshipped this guy. Nobody ever actually cared about this guy, as we'll learn.
Okay.
Sad.
Right?
Yeah. But it has a happy ending, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, we can get to... and I think that happy ending is all about the Satanic Temple and Lucian. And
no one's worshipped me all my life, and I don't think that's going to happen in my future, so I'm happy for him.
You know what? I'm getting there. I'm almost to worshiping you.
Well,
you put in a couple more weeks at the gym, and I'm there.
Here, and listen, just for any art lovers out there, and maybe you don't have a chance to go to the Met in New York, or to a larger city to see a beautiful statuary, but if you want to see this beautiful Baphomet statue, all you have to do is elect a bunch of fucking Christianist morons to your legislature,
right?
Who will then put a 10 Commandments statue on your Capitol grounds, and Baphomet will just show up.
He'll just come.
The great thing about that plan is in almost every town in America, you're about halfway there already.
Yeah, that's right. Or, the other way is you can look in the mirror and you say his name 3 times. You got to light a candle, I think.
You say Huckabee 3 times or Baphomet? Right. You say Huckabee 3 times and a bucket of chicken appears.
But don't eat the chicken. Do not be fooled.
Eat the chicken.
You'll want to, but don't do it. Yeah. Anyway, so as you know, this beautifully crafted totem, it was created basically to strike terror into the hearts of the good God-fearing Christians.
Oh, it's so hard to do.
Right? No, it's so...
You don't need a 12-foot bronze devil.
You know what, though? It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
You just need one trans kid that wants to use a bathroom.
Right, yeah, exactly. Or just mention that there are trans people in the world. It's fine. But, this is to make sure that the Christians who feel it's their holy duty to make damn good and sure that their beliefs are inflicted by force if necessary on anyone they come in contact with, this is to make sure that they shut the hell up. That's his whole concept.
Right.
But Baphomet's not Satan. So,
Okay.
let's go back in time. The earliest recorded mention that we have extant was from 1098.
Really? That old? I thought it was a more recent
Yeah, me too.
creation.
It both is and isn't.
Okay.
But that word, we'll get back to what that word actually probably meant. But it was mentioned in a letter from a guy who was on the Crusades and was talking about a failed attempt to murder a bunch of Muslims. And how they were all calling on the name of Baphomet.
He was having a case of the Mondays, and he wrote his friends to
Yeah,
say,
exactly.
bad day at the office.
Bad day at the Crusades. And boy, weren't so many of them that way. Anyway, but really, he comes into fame in the late 13th and early 14th century. Oddly, and everybody get ready, all you Dan Brown fans out there.
Oh, no.
It was because worship of Baphomet was one of the main charges in the heresy trials of the members of the, and I did not know that this was the name, Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, a.k.a. the Order of Solomon, a.k.a. the Knights Templar.
They're called the Poor Fellows?
The Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon.
Wait. So they, during the heresy trials, they were charged with
Here's the
this?
deal. I mean, so I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but the French king owed a shit ton of money apparently to the Knights Templar by this point. And in order to get out of it,
He just burned them all.
he just accused them of heresy, including, strangely, I think peeing and spitting on the cross. But also one of the charges was worshiping Baphomet.
Okay.
Really?
And that was and then of course what happens in those days when you're charged with heresy is that
You get a bird lawyer.
you're treated very well. Yes, you get a bird lawyer. You're treated very well and everything goes fine.
So this king is
Or-
basically, this is the version of the king in that episode of The Office when Michael Scott declared bankruptcy.
Right. Except that what actually happens when you're accused of heresy is that you're tortured until you admit to heresy, which everyone does because you're being tortured and then you're killed.
And then you're burned alive.
Yeah. So
Yay, Christianity.
several of the Knights Templar did confess to worshiping Baphomet. None of them had the same story. So one guy said it was a head. Another guy said it was a cat. Another guy said it was like this thing with three faces. None of them knew what the fuck it was that they were accused of worshiping or of idolizing. But boy, they all admitted to it. So that's when this comes first into the real into the minds of the general populace.
Right.
And then we move on, and then it just sort of, I get the sense it just sort of simmered in the zeitgeist for a while before it became more of a thing when a guy named, so there was a sort of occultist known as Joseph von Hammer-Purgstall. You're welcome.
The greatest name for an occultist ever.
Who sort of called on him and on Baphomet and came up with this idea of Baphomet being all about oppositions and
Right, so
the light and the dark. And
Is this when the first depiction of him? Well, I think it's a they.
It's a him. It's a they in the non-gendered sense. You mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So what we've got is an image of a god with both genders because it's all about both. It's all about boths,
right.
Light and dark, good and evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Male, female,
all
life, death,
all
that
of the
stuff.
boths.
Yeah.
So breasts on a male, but a male figure, but maybe not male, but maybe all of these things. And then a guy named Eliphas Levi or something was the first person to came up with a drawing. He's the first person to put a goat on the head.
Right.
Before that, it was just a person head. And literally came up with and inserted the pentagram on the forehead, and like a point at the top of the head where fire was coming out, like a sort of a torch sort of thing. And all of these things are used by the Satanic Temple in their vision of Baphomet. Satanic Temple eliminated the boobs because they didn't want to get into a whole gender thing, and the last thing what they wanted to do is create a monument that could conceivably actually be placed on a Capitol grounds or something.
It wasn't like breaking any obscenity laws, or something
exactly.
Like that.
They didn't want to give any grounds to say no other than just I'm scared.
Because there are still very strict no bronze boob laws in 47 states.
That's right, in most states.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised which ones don't have the laws.
Yeah. Mississippi, weirdly.
Strange.
And Rhode Island.
They require bronze
and Hawaii.
The only thing those three states have in common.
You can see a bronze boob.
Just metal titties everywhere you look. So basically, literally, this was a made-up character that people kept imposing their ideas on.
Right, and other than his use for destroying the Templars,
right?
It sounds like everybody else, von Helsingspugel and Eflam,
Levi or whatever.
It sounds like those uses were kind of as a symbolic being, right?
Basically, yeah.
In the same way, Lucian uses and the Satanic Temple use Baphomet as a symbolic being,
right? And it ends up being this sort of like underground occultist image that people glom onto when they want to get a little creepsy,
right?
You know what I mean? But they don't. But this was never an actual god that was worshipped, really. In more modern times, Aleister Crowley, who's known as sort of he's kind of the granddaddy of modern Satanism.
Yeah,
he did take the image. You know that image? I don't know if you've seen it. It's an inverted pentagram, so a 5-pointed star pointing down.
Yeah,
and then there's a goat head that's sort of in it, and it fits really nicely. You know the
it's a triangle.
Comes
it's
down,
a triangular shape,
and then the ears make two things, and the horns make two things, and it's like and Aleister Crowley took that and sort of used that as a symbol in his Church of Satan.
Yeah, and we'll have to another time. We should do a whole thing on Aleister Crowley because
totally, he's a fascinating
character.
Indeed, but yeah, so that was the Baphomet of Levi or of Levi. I don't know how he pronounces it. Levi, and that's sort of the image that has persisted ever since. And that was in the 1800s that Levi did that, and that's kind of the image that's persisted. And that's what the Satanic Temple was drawing on, but literally, this was a god that was invented to make these Templars look bad. Now, what did they have to do with the Templars? Well, here's the thing: Baphomet was probably a mispronunciation or a different pronunciation of Mahomet.
Muhammad.
It was Muhammad.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
So this was a bastardization of the word Muhammad, and they were being accused of because they went into Islamic territory.
Right.
They
got the devil on them.
They were accused of allowing some of that garden heaven stuff to creep in to their belief systems, and were accused of a little bit of idol worship of Muhammad, as opposed to staying nice and pure and
what's
Christian.
Fascinating is that, in a way, what Lucian Greaves and the Satanic Temple are doing is using Baphomet in very much the same way.
Right.
that the King of France used him in,
Right.
which is nobody in that room believed in Baphomet, but it was a tool to achieve a political end.
Well, this would be
Right.
closer. I mean, I think the analogy falls apart because this would be because the modern equivalent, what Lucian is doing, is it's as though the Templar Knights themselves are using Baphomet against the king. Like that's what we're talking about.
Exactly
here.
right, but it's still an invented boogeyman,
Right.
To force a political outcome.
Right. And Lucian and the Satanic Temple will be the first to tell you this is not someone that this is not this
They don't worship Baphomet.
they don't believe in Baphomet.
No.
They don't believe in Satan
They
even.
believe in what Baphomet represents.
They let it represent something, and
Yeah.
so they've imposed their own series of ideas upon him in the fine tradition of the ages,
Right.
Which is fine. Levy's Baphomet has, like I said, a pentagram on the forehead. It's got a what's that snaky thing? The
Caduceus.
Yeah, the two snakes on the rod, sort of coming up out of his pants, which
Really?
His goatskin leggings.
Badoom! Yeah, exactly. And he's got the words solve and coagula on his forearms.
Yeah.
On one arm, solve, which the root word I think for solvent, it means to break things apart.
Okay.
And coagula
To put them together.
to join them together. And he's got two fingers pointing up and two fingers pointing down, representing,
Heaven and hell, day and night, light and dark,
up and down.
up and down.
Whatever.
I was going to get there.
That's where the Cub Scout salute comes from.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Satan.
Yeah.
We're cracking this open.
Dan Brown, baby.
Wide open.
QAnon.
Let's let QAnon know.
Oh, he already does.
Oh yeah, long since figured this out. They decided to give the Satanic Temple decided to give him goat hooves as well, and so he's goat-legged because he was kind of inspired by there are goat-headed gods that precede
Right.
Baphomet, including
Right.
Pan, and
they usually represent kind of the more carnal side of humanity.
lustful and playful
randy.
and a little bit countercultural.
Right.
And that's kind of a useful thing. They left off the breasts, but there's the torch between the horns, which is knowledge, which represents knowledge to Greaves.
Right.
It glorifies the pursuit of knowledge, which is what Satanic Temple talks about believing in, and they
Right.
believe in like knowledge as it comes from science, not as it comes from people who just tell you something.
Right.
So
From popes.
right, and that's kind of their thing. So basically, this terrifying figure that all of Arkansas is just horrified by
Yeah.
doesn't even represent Satan, which I think is amazing. It
Right.
is this goat guy, with some symbols on him that they're afraid of. And he's so harmless, it's impossible to think that he doesn't even have boobs.
Yeah, but you think about it. It's just ticking off the list. He's this possibly Islamic-inspired immigrant, goat-headed god, possibly transgender. I mean,
Right.
If you make him a vegan, you get Christian fear bingo.
Right.
If he rode his bike on the sidewalk rather than the bike lane, I would be like, perfect. Perfect. Right?
Basically, this is just a guy that is a usefully scary, like freaky looking dude.
That has always been, as I was saying, a tool.
Yeah.
He's just always been a tool.
Just a useful guy.
Like any god, but this is the closest most people will come to understanding. He's just like all the rest of them. He's just a tool for to force an outcome.
Ironically, probably responsible for the least amount of death of any god in history.
The only people that die because of him die because they're accused of believing in him.
Yeah. And it's funny too when we were talking about Lucian. This isn't Satan. They don't worship him. I don't know how many times I've heard Lucian Greaves say, we do not worship Baphomet. We are a non-theistic
Right.
Religious order. They don't hear it. They just
No.
look at the scary devil thing, and that's it.
Well, what's delightful is that if you go to their website, it says this is just symbolism to us.
Yeah.
This is just an idea to us. We don't worship him. We don't care about him. And also, all we care about is either you have to be inclusive of all religions or don't put any religious stuff up
Right.
on your on government grounds.
Right.
They're explicit about all of this.
Explicit.
And they also say I think they've actually said in public that this is just, we get that it's scary for you, but we made it like they put children looking up longing, like adoringly.
Right.
He's teaching them.
He's teaching
Yeah.
them. He's not horrifying. He's not hurting anybody. He's purposefully just sort of calm faced.
Yeah. He looks like a guru. He looks he's someone who's there to impart wisdom.
Yeah,
If he
except
had
he has the same
snails on his
workout.
head, he'd be the Buddha.
He has the same workout routine as Matthew McConaughey, though.
Yeah, that's true. He's got some
And the same goatskin leggings.
He's got some good delts. Yeah. Anyway, so that's him. He's that is the terror of the seven seas for
The terror
Christians.
of the Arkanites.
Yes, indeed.
Exposed.
Those Arkansawyers are fearful people.
Well, that's wonderful. Let's put him back in the garden or on the State House lawn, and let's move on.
Yes, indeed.